There's a quiet intelligence within the human body, a subtle language that speaks long before anything becomes urgent or life-threatening. Yet most men are never taught how to listen to it. Instead, they are conditioned to respond only when discomfort becomes unbearable, when the whisper turns into a scream. In the case of prostate health, this habit can be especially dangerous. It often begins with changes so minor they are easy to dismiss. A man might notice he's waking up once or twice more during the night to urinate. At first, it feels like a small inconvenience, something to blame on drinking extra water before bed or simply getting older. Then there's the slightly weaker stream, a delay in starting, or the subtle feeling that the bladder isn't fully empty. None of these signs seem alarming on their own. They don't interrupt life dramatically. They don't demand attention. And so, they are ignored. But what if these small shifts are not random? What if they are the body's early attempts to communicate that something deeper is changing? The problem is not just the symptoms themselves, it's the interpretation. Many men normalize these signals because they are common, especially with age. There's a dangerous comfort in thinking, this happens to everyone. That belief creates a false sense of security, allowing time to pass while the underlying issue quietly progresses. The body, in its wisdom, starts with whispers because it is giving you a chance, an opportunity to act before the situation becomes complex. Ignoring these whispers doesn't make them disappear. It only delays the moment of truth. Another reason these early signs go unnoticed is because they don't come with pain. Pain demands attention. Pain disrupts routine. But prostate-related changes often operate in silence. They blend into daily life, making them easy to overlook. A man adapts without even realizing it. He plans his day around restroom access, avoids long trips without stops, or accepts interrupted sleep as the new normal. Adaptation becomes a coping mechanism, not a solution. There is also a psychological layer to this silence. Many men are taught directly or indirectly to endure rather than investigate, to tolerate rather than question. Health becomes something to think about only when absolutely necessary. This mindset turns early detection into a missed opportunity. By the time action is taken, the conversation has shifted from prevention to treatment. But the body never intended for things to reach that point. Every small signal is a form of guidance. Frequent urination is not just an inconvenience, it's information. A weak stream is not just a minor annoyance, it's a clue. Even the feeling of incomplete emptying carries meaning. These are not random malfunctions. They are messages encoded in sensation and experience, asking to be acknowledged. Listening requires awareness, and awareness requires a shift in mindset. Instead of dismissing subtle changes, there must be curiosity. Instead of assuming everything is fine, there must be a willingness to question. This doesn't mean living in fear, it means living with attention. It means recognizing that early action is far easier, less invasive, and far more effective than late intervention. There's a profound difference between reacting and responding. Reacting happens when the body forces your attention, when symptoms are severe and options may be limited. Responding happens when you choose to act at the first sign of change, when the stakes are lower and the path forward is clearer. The tragedy is that many men only learn this lesson in hindsight. They look back and realize the signs were there all along, quietly present, patiently waiting to be noticed. What seemed insignificant at the time becomes meaningful in retrospect. The whisper was always speaking. They just weren't listening. And in that realization lies a powerful truth. The body is not your enemy, and it is not working against you. It is constantly trying to protect you, to guide you, to keep you in balance. But it can only do so if you are willing to pay attention to what it is saying, even when its voice is soft. There is a deeply ingrained belief that pain is the body's primary warning system, the unmistakable signal that something is wrong. For many men, this belief becomes a silent rule. If it doesn't hurt, it's not serious. This mindset, while common, can be dangerously misleading, especially when it comes to prostate health. The truth is far more complex and far less comforting. Some of the most serious conditions develop quietly, without pain as their first messenger. Prostate cancer, in particular, often begins its journey in silence. In its early stages, it may not produce any discomfort at all. There is no sharp signal to interrupt your day, no immediate reason to stop and question what's happening inside your body. Life continues as usual, routines remain unchanged, and the absence of pain creates a powerful illusion of safety. It feels like everything is fine, even when it may not be. This absence of pain is not a sign of absence of disease. It is simply the nature of how certain conditions evolve. The body does not always follow the rules we expect. While some illnesses announce themselves loudly, others move quietly, adapting and growing without triggering alarm. Prostate cancer can remain confined and unnoticed for a long time, gradually progressing without causing obvious symptoms. By the time pain does appear, often in areas like the lower back, hips, or pelvis, it may indicate that the disease has advanced beyond its earliest, most treatable stage. This is where the danger lies. Waiting for pain means waiting for progression. Pain, in many cases, is a late signal. It is not the beginning of the story. It is a later chapter. When discomfort finally emerges, it may reflect pressure on surrounding tissues, spread to nearby structures, or deeper involvement within the body. At that point, the conversation shifts. What could have been a simple check becomes a more complex journey of tests, decisions, and treatments. Yet despite this reality, the belief persists. Many men equate strength with endurance, convincing themselves that as long as they can carry on without discomfort, there is no need for concern. This quiet confidence becomes a barrier to early detection. It delays conversations with doctors, postpones routine screenings, and creates a false sense of control. But true control does not come from waiting, it comes from awareness. There is a different kind of strength required here, one that is often overlooked. It is the strength to act without being forced, to take responsibility for your health even in the absence of symptoms. It is the discipline to recognize that prevention and early detection are not signs of weakness, but of wisdom. The challenge is psychological as much as it is physical. Without pain, there is no urgency. Without urgency, there is no action. And without action, time continues to pass. The mind finds comfort in routine, in the familiar rhythm of daily life, avoiding the discomfort of uncertainty that comes with medical checkups. It is easier to believe that nothing is wrong than to confront the possibility that something might be. But the body does not wait for certainty. It continues its processes quietly, regardless of whether attention is given or not. Understanding this changes the way health is approached. Instead of using pain as the only signal, there must be a broader awareness, an understanding that silence can also carry meaning. Regular screenings, conversations with healthcare professionals, and attention to even minor changes become essential tools, not optional ones. It is also important to recognize that early detection dramatically changes outcomes. When conditions like prostate cancer are identified at an early stage, options are often simpler, more effective, and less invasive. The difference between early and late discovery is not just medical, it is deeply personal, affecting quality of life, peace of mind, and future possibilities. Relying on pain as a guide is like waiting for a fire alarm in a building that has already been smoldering for hours. By the time the alarm sounds, the situation has changed. What could have been managed quietly now demands urgent attention. There is a quiet invitation in all of this, to shift from reaction to intention, to stop waiting for the body to shout and instead learn to listen when it speaks softly or even when it says nothing at all. Because in that silence there may still be a message, and in recognizing it early, there is an opportunity to change the entire course of what comes next. There is a quiet force that often stands between men and their health, and it is not physical, it is psychological. Pride, in its many forms, can shape decisions in ways that feel natural but carry hidden consequences. It tells a man to stay strong, to handle things on his own, to avoid vulnerability at all costs. While these ideas may seem admirable on the surface, they can become barriers when it comes to recognizing and addressing health concerns, particularly those that feel personal or uncomfortable. For many men, the idea of seeking medical help, especially for something related to prostate health, can trigger a sense of unease. There is embarrassment, a fear of being judged, or even a reluctance to discuss symptoms that feel private. Pride steps in and offers a convenient solution. ignore it, minimize it, or convince yourself it's not important. It creates a narrative that everything is under control, even when there are signs suggesting otherwise. This is how silence begins. A man might notice changes in his body, but choose not to talk about them. He may delay a doctor's visit, telling himself he'll go later, or if it gets worse. That moment of hesitation seems small, almost insignificant, but it has weight. Time passes, and with it, the opportunity for early detection. What could have been a simple conversation becomes something postponed indefinitely. Pride often disguises itself as strength, but in this context, it can lead to avoidance. It encourages endurance without awareness, creating the illusion that ignoring a problem somehow reduces its impact. In reality, the opposite is true. The longer something is left unaddressed, the more space it has to develop. There is also the influence of social conditioning. From a young age, many men are taught to suppress discomfort, to push through pain, and to avoid showing weakness. Health concerns, especially those involving intimate areas, can feel like a challenge to identity. Admitting something might be wrong can feel like admitting vulnerability, and that can be difficult to confront. But the body does not respond to pride. It does not adjust its course based on denial or hesitation. It continues its processes regardless of whether they are acknowledged. Ignoring symptoms does not pause progression, it only delays awareness. Another layer to this is fear. Pride and fear often work together, reinforcing each other. Fear of diagnosis, fear of treatment, fear of what might be discovered. All of these can make avoidance feel safer than action. Pride then justifies that avoidance, framing it as control rather than hesitation. It becomes easier to stay in the comfort of uncertainty than to face the clarity of a medical evaluation. Yet there is a cost to this silence. When health issues are addressed early, the path forward is often clearer and less complicated. There are more options, more flexibility, and more control over decisions. Waiting, on the other hand, narrows those options. It can transform a manageable situation into a more complex one, requiring more intensive intervention. True strength is not about ignoring the possibility of illness. It is about confronting it with clarity and intention. It is about recognizing that seeking help is not a loss of control, but a way to maintain it. It takes courage to step beyond discomfort, to ask questions, and to take action before circumstances force it. There is also a shift that happens when pride is redefined. Instead of being rooted in avoidance, it can be grounded in responsibility. Taking care of one's health, being proactive, and making informed decisions can become a source of confidence rather than discomfort. This kind of pride supports well-being rather than standing in its way. The challenge is recognizing when pride has crossed the line from protective to harmful. It is not always obvious. It can feel like patience, like resilience, like self-reliance. But when it prevents action, when it delays necessary steps, it becomes a risk. Many men, in hindsight, realize that the hardest part was not the diagnosis or the treatment. It was the decision to act. The moment they chose to move past hesitation, to seek clarity instead of avoiding it, everything else became more manageable. What once felt overwhelming became structured, guided, and supported. There is a quiet power in letting go of the need to appear unaffected. In choosing awareness over avoidance, action over delay, and responsibility over denial, a different kind of strength emerges, one that is not defined by silence, but by the willingness to face reality directly.